Howdy there, guys. So today I want to discuss the topic of how should Catholics interact with the modern world, or really just Christians in general. How should we interact with the modern world? Because the reality is, we all grew up in the modern world at this point. We all live in it. It's the air we breathe. It's the ocean we swim in, right? It's all around us. It's impossible to escape it. Okay? So what do we do? I think largely the vast majority of ills that the Catholic Church has put itself in over the last 100 years, 150 years really, are due to the Church acquiescing to the modern world. The last video that I put out, it was entitled, Bishops Are Acting Like Judas. Bishops are acting like Judas Iscariot. And my point in that video was to really say that many, many bishops in the church today are acquiescing to the modern world. They're just saying, okay, modern world, we're going to make as many concessions with you as we can. And they're ultimately sacrificing our Catholic identity as a church. They're sacrificing our authenticity as a church. And that's not just on the liturgical sphere, okay? There are, as I stated in the last video, and I've stated in a number of videos lately, what's happening in the German church is case in point on this issue of what happens when you try to buddy up with the modern world, make it your friend. You don't convert it. Okay, you can convert individuals, all right? You can't convert ideologies. You can't. And in trying to throw out too large of a net, you'll gain so many fish that you can't pull it up. You know, there's the biblical story of right, Peter throwing out a catch of fish. And he's not catching anything. And then the Lord comes by and says, hey, throw off this side of the boat. And then he catches the whole shill of fish. Why did he catch that whole shill of fish, the whole net? Because he did what the Lord told him. He did what the Lord told him. Not what he wanted. Not what the people around him wanted. He did what God wanted for him. Now, of course, the German bishops, many liberal Catholics, right? They all think that they're doing what God wants of them. I would assume that they're not acting like purely out of malice for the divine, right? It's possible that some are. Okay. But I think there's a very large strain within the Catholic Church, and I mentioned this in the last video, but I want to make this video in order to reiterate it and emphasize it. There's a large strain within the Catholic Church and within Christianity in general, which wishes to make itself relevant to the modern world. And I'm here to tell you that by making ourselves relevant to the modern world, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. And not just like shooting ourselves in the foot, we're like chopping off limbs of ourselves, where it's not just a flesh wound, it's going to be pretty vital pretty quick, and we're going to bleed out very quickly. And we're bleeding out currently, is what's going on. The church is bleeding out. In the areas where it has where it has tried to make itself relevant, it loses its relevance. Okay? In the act of trying to make itself relevant, it loses its relevance. Because it's acknowledging, the church is acknowledging, when it says, oh, I'm going to try to make myself like you, modern world, it's acknowledging that what it is unimportant. And thus, why would anybody come to it? Why would they not just go to the modern world at that point? If the church is trying to be like the modern world, then people are going to go to the modern world. They're not going to go to the church. That's just the reality of things. In the liturgy, we've seen this, right? People try to make the liturgy applicable to the modern world. You try to throw in, guitars and drums and make it like a rock concert, or make like praise and worship music all throughout the liturgy, or like this namby-pamby music throughout the liturgy. And what happens? You lose people. You might gain them initially. You might gain like a few people initially, but they're not going to stay, because they realize that it's inauthentic. Not just with the example of music, but with the example of evangelization. Here's the deal, is that we try to be like, okay, toe the line between like, all right, I'm not going to say that transgenderism is evil, but I'm going to try to like toe the line and like make you understand that it's evil without actually saying it. And basically what it is it's like a deceptive form of evangelization, where the person isn't being blunt enough to just say what's going on. All right. Now, you do have to read your audience. That is true. Like I said last time, you do have to read your audience. If you know that the person's just going to shut down if you say something like transgenderism is evil, then maybe you have to seek a better way. But there is also the reality that like some people just don't want to hear the gospel. Okay, there is that reality. There are some people who are just not receptive. And at that point, you need to speak the truth to them and then walk away. Brush the dust from your feet, from your sandals, right? And then walk away, move on. At least then they know what you stand for. Okay, here's the thing. There is a reality to the fact that standing for something, even when other people don't understand it and don't accept it, there is something inherently good there for standing up for what you believe in. And even, the secular world acknowledges that, right? They kind of play that trumpet. They make themselves out to be the victim, right? And victim mentality is a whole nother thing that's a whole nother topic. It's insidious, it's unhelpful, it doesn't do anything, and it's ultimately self-defeating is what it is. But goodness. Yeah, so the church over the last 60 years especially, ultimately it has been since Vatican II and since a little before, right? Since it seemed to really, in my reading of the history, it seems to really have begun in the 50s. The church really began after World War II to placate itself to the world and to start just kind of giving little bits here and there, and acquiescing, basically. So I keep using that word, but it's because I think it is the best word, the best describer of what's going on. So what can we do? Okay, what can we do? How do we evangelize the modern world when, they don't want to hear it, and when I guess let's go with that. How do we evangelize the modern world when they don't want to hear it? Do we change what we're saying? Do we water it down so much that it ends up not meaning anything? No. We don't change it and we don't water it down. There is a little bit of, I will acknowledge, there's a little bit of tweaking that needs to be done. You can't just say the truth like it's a bludgeon and bludgeon people to death with it. Okay. As I've said many times, truth is communicative. But it is a bit of a tightrope. It's a virtue. You have to balance between the means, you have to balance between the extremes at the mean. And what that involves is not being afraid to speak the truth to somebody else, but also being able to read where they're coming from. But you don't hide what you believe from them because they're not going to accept it. Like, you especially don't lie to them, right? But you also don't hold back the truth from them. If my telling you that transgenderism is evil, that is a truth. That is a truth. Now, the way that I communicate that to you cannot sacrifice the truth for the sake of communication. I can't say, well, transgenderism, it's not all that bad, really. You just have to see it in a certain light. And really what we can do is we can just say that, you can call yourself whatever you want. But, as long as you don't lop off parts of your body, then that's okay. I think people that say that, and I've seen a lot of Catholics say that, I think that is going too far. I think you're giving over too much. In that instance, you're basically allowing yourself to be nominalist. You're basically saying that, oh, well, whatever I call myself is what it is. And so therefore, or you're saying that, words don't matter at that point. That I can say whatever I want, and all that matters is the truth. The words don't actually mean anything. The truth is some Platonic reality that's out there that is independent of the words that we use. Okay, I think that both those kind of extremes are problematic. And when somebody says something like, oh, well, you can call yourself whatever you want. You can call yourself a boy even if you're a girl, or vice versa, as long as you don't lop off parts of your body and try to make yourself that other thing, then it's okay. Again, I think that that's acquiescing too much. It really is. So, and for the reasons I previously stated. So, we've seen this in so many ways over the past, let's just say 60 years, because that's when the majority of it has happened. All right. And it's just getting worse. It's just getting worse. People are, they're not just even hiding from it now. You have the German synodal way just coming out there and saying what they believe, and they're in heresy now. They are. It's formal. All the rumblings, and we knew this was going to happen for the past 3 years, that they've been doing this synodal process, but they've officially crossed the line. And the problem is that as of yet we're not seeing any reactions from Rome, and that's incredibly. It's not just unfortunate, it's scandalous, as I said before. So, okay, so in what ways can we how do we react to the modern world? How do we have a relationship with it? Because we can't hide from it. We can't isolate ourselves from it. We also can't bludgeon it to death. There is a reality to the fact that you can't, I don't think being the guy on the street corner preaching angrily at people, that is unproductive at that point. But having conversations with people, okay, one-on-one, or potentially in a group setting, right? Having conversations with people about these issues and trying to evangelize the individual, not for the sake of gaining a convert, but for the sake of truly wishing their own good and seeking the truth together with that person. If we really believe that Catholicism is true, then we should want to seek the truth with another person and help them to find it. and not be afraid that, like, if they don't accept what we're saying, then, you know, they're going to dislike us or something. Like, it is about relationship, ultimately. And what it comes down to is, you know, you can't be afraid of disagreeing with another person. I can have severe disagreements with you, but that doesn't mean that I can't have a cordial and even a friendship with you. Maybe not an Aristotelian friendship, like deep friendship, because I do think the really deep friendship needs to be united in a worldview. But you can have like a lesser form of friendship with somebody, and something that's incredibly valuable and like really beautiful. Like most people, when they talk about friendship, they're not talking about that really, really deep Aristotelian form of friendship. They're talking about a more surface level version of it. And not to say that unless you're at that deepest level, that it's surface level. No, that there are a lot of gradients in between, right? And you can have those types of friendships, let's call them medium friendships, for lack of a better term, with people who you severely disagree with on very important issues. Like, I can have a friend with an atheist or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist or a Protestant or whatever might have you. Like, I can have a real friendship with them. It may not be the deepest form of friendship, but I can have a very, very real friendship with them. And even more than just an acquaintanceship, much more than just an acquaintanceship. So, anyway, I kind of derailed us there on friendship, but I do think that is important. Because people don't want to lose relationships with those with whom they disagree. We live in the modern world, and ultimately, we can't just surround ourselves and have relationships with people that we agree with. That's impossible. It's impossible. And if we did that, we wouldn't be evangelizing, okay, is the thing. And so all of this, I'm saying it as somebody who, at one point or another, you know, quite recently, I would say, within the last 2 to 3 years, I was trying to toe the line between keeping my relationships with people and keeping them like PC, politically correct, and yet wrestling with my Catholic beliefs. And eventually, what I came to the realization was that I can have those relationships with friends, even if I severely disagree with them. And the way that relationship sticks together is if they're actually willing to have a conversation with me about those deep, dividing topics. And if we can talk about them, just talk about them in a civil, peaceful, Irenic way, then you know that you've gained somebody who can be a real friend. If you have somebody who they're just going to stop talking to you once you get to a certain level of disagreement about politics or religion or what have you, then they're probably not friendship material. And you want to still evangelize them, okay? You want to still be a witness to them. But at the end of the day, like, evangelization is not me trying to make you Catholic. That's not evangelization. That is proselytization. That is coercion. Me trying to make you Catholic. What evangelization is me saying, hey, I'm Catholic, I believe all this stuff is true, and I'm going to try to present it to you in the best way possible. But if you don't accept that, then that's your free will, and I love you no matter what. But I still think that you should believe this because I believe it's true. That's evangelization. And I'm probably forgetting a couple things here and there, but I think that is the gist of it. That's the gist of it. It's just saying, hey, this is what I believe, putting it all out on the table for the person, warts and all, right? The things that they're not going to accept, or that you think they're not going to accept, bring it out on the table and have a discussion with them. If they're not willing to have that discussion, then they've put the roadblock up, not you. Okay, you've done your due diligence at that point in evangelization. And as long as you don't close the door to them in a relationship, as long as you are willing to be there for them if they ever want to open up that conversation again, because many people, it may just be that at this certain point in time, they're not ready to have that conversation, and that's fine. That is fine. But they may eventually come back to you and wish to open up dialogue there, okay? And then that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I want to share an example from my own life that has been one of the most amazing relationships I've had with another human being, on this level of like where we disagree wholeheartedly on very core issues, and we've also hammered out where we agree wholeheartedly. But we're able to have deep conversations with each other without allowing it to deeply affect our views of one another. We can have respectful disagreements and still be friends and still be family. This person is a member of my family, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying his name, because he told me he wants to come on my podcast soon so that we can have a recorded discussion. But it's my brother-in-law, Joseph Smith. He has the most generic name known to man. But I love him dearly. And he's an atheist. And he's a Democrat, he's a liberal. Like we have so many disagreements. But we're able to talk about them with each other. And we're able to love each other in that and through that. And while there are certain areas that we can't like really get super deep on because we're not at points of agreement. Like again, I'm saying that the true deepest form of friendship, which Aristotle kind of describes, it is necessary to have a unification of worldview. Okay, it is necessary on those very deep issues to be able to really bare your heart to the other person and to agree. To have that deepest sort of friendship, you do need that unification of worldview. But again, like I said, that is only the deepest form. And most people will only have one, maybe two of those friends in their entire life. Those very deep form of friendship. Okay. But that doesn't exclude, all the other forms of friendship, to where you can have severe disagreements with another person and still have an incredibly fulfilling relationship with them. That is a real friendship. It's just not that deepest form. Okay, so like my brother-in-law and I, again, like I said, we disagree on so many things, but we're able to talk about it, and we're able to have fun talking about it with each other. And it's relationships like that I wish to foster with everyone that I encounter, whether it's other Catholics whom I disagree with on a lot of things, or whether it's Protestants, or whether it's people of other world religions. Like, I think I can truly say that I'm attempting to evangelize my brother-in-law Joe. And that's true evangelization. Like, I hope he doesn't feel coerced by me. He knows that he has full freedom to do whatever the heck he wants with his life. But I'm trying to present the truth to him as I see it. And he's also trying to present the truth to me as I see it. He's evangelizing me in a very real way. I mean, not in a Christian evangelization, but in a secular way of evangelizing. It's the same sort of action. Sharing the truth with one another is evangelization. Coercion is not. Coercion is not evangelization. And I think in a lot of ways, the Catholic Church in the modern world has been coercing people, basically by shifting its identity in order to make itself more appealing to the modern world. That is coercion. That's coercion. It's not what we normally think of coercion. Or I guess maybe you could call it deception. Okay, I guess I could distinguish between deception and coercion, okay? Let's call deception where I change myself to make you like me more. And then later on, you'll figure out what my true colors are, right? That's deception. Coercion is me trying to present the truth in a way to you that isn't actually true in order to win you over to my side. Okay, that would be coercion. Coercion, I guess, in the way I'm defining it, is more offensive, whereas, what did I call it? Diversion or deception is more like defensive. You're trying to like change yourself in order to bring the other person over. Okay, it's kind of a different emphasis, but both are not evangelization, and I think the church in the modern world has mostly been engaging in deception by trying to change itself so that people will like it. Okay? It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like, oh my goodness. It's just, it's horrendous. It's deceptive, ultimately. Do we want to deceive people? No. No, we do not. And in changing what Catholicism is, so that people will like us, we're lying to them. We are. Now, some may say, well, I'm changing Catholicism into what it should be. The problem there is that you have now you've created Catholicism in your own image, and you're creating it in a way, like basically they're saying everything that we've believed in the past for the past 2,000 years, well, not everything, but on these key issues for the past 2,000 years, we've been wrong. And they would claim that we're moving in the right direction now. That is precisely what I mean by sacrificing our identity. The German bishops, and there are many clergy and bishops in the United States and in much of the Western world that are trying to do the same thing. And they're deceiving people, is what it is. They're deceiving people. So, yeah, I guess, it's an unfortunate reality that we're living in the church. And honestly, guys, the only way to battle this is with authenticity. The only way to battle this inauthenticity, this lack of identity, is to give the true authentic identity of Catholicism to other people. And we might bicker exactly how, in which way that is to be conveyed. Traditionalists might say, oh, well, it needs to be all within the Latin Mass or something to that extreme. I'm not talking to all traditionalists, just those at certain extremes. And then the conservatives might say, well, no, we need to not focus so much on liturgy, but on doctrine. Okay. Both are true. Both are true. And I'll just lay out my conception of this here. What I think is the best way to move forward. Here's what it would be. On the front of the liturgy, it would be, okay, we have this situation where we're celebrating a liturgy, namely the Novus Ordo, that is lackluster, to say the least. And it's quite inauthentic. And it is a large part of the problem of why people are confused and why people are trying to acquiesce to the modern world. Because I really do think the Novus Ordo, as it was created, is basically an acquiescence to the modern world. It's not contiguous with what happened before. It's not contiguous with the Mass of the Ages, the Roman Rite of the Ages. Okay, and you can find all my thoughts in my liturgy playlist. There's a lot of distinctions that I make on my view there. But aesthetically speaking, as regards the outer expression of the liturgy, I think it conveys inauthenticity. And that's a huge problem. That is a huge problem. We need to get our act together, and, I'll take the reform of the reform, making the Novus Ordo as close to the TLM as possible, as long as that's not our end goal. Like, maybe over the next 100 years, we try to, like I've said before, make the Novus Ordo as close as possible to the TLM, as close as possible. And then eventually we get people to a point where they're like, okay, well, now let's basically resurrect the TLM, maybe make a few tweaks here and there, and then we have something that's really contiguous with what came before. And I think on the liturgical sphere, that would be a way to healing the church and moving forward. And moving forward in authenticity. Okay. This is not going to happen overnight. Like, I really think this is going to take the next century or more. So that's on the liturgical side of things. On the doctrinal side of things, we need to start excommunicating people. We really do. The German bishops that have gone into schism, they need to be excommunicated. Flat out. That's just what needs to happen. And hopefully it will eventually. Maybe it won't be with this pope, but the next one darn well better excommunicate them. Or else, oh my goodness. It's hard to even think about. The way that the church is losing her reputation through the sexual abuse crisis, through, at this point, we've ruined our reputation already with the sexual abuse crisis. So, what do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? We've tried to placate to the modern world, and they've crucified us on that. They've crucified us on it. With the sexual abuse crisis. I mean, we've crucified ourselves on it. We have to stop pandering to them. We have to just be who we are. Okay? We have to just be who we are. That's it. I don't know what else to say. I really don't. We need to recover our past. We need to make the Catholic Church in conformity with what it's been over the past 2,000 years. That doesn't involve trying to go back to the 1950s. No, we're not trying to go back to the 1950s. We're not trying to go back to the 1920s. We're not trying to go back to the 1860s. But we do need to take things from all of those different places and try to synthesize it so that we can become what we are again in conformity with our past. Instead of this weird rupture thing that happened in the 1960s. It's not working. It's not going to work. It's failing us. It's killing us. In the liturgical sphere and on the doctrinal sphere. We can't keep pandering to the modern world. Can't do it. Nope. Not going to work. All right. I've probably talked too long on this already, so forgive me for rambling. I want to see the church be authentic again. I want to see us stop placating to modernity. All right. I think I've made that point. Lest I continue to ramble on and repeat myself again and again and again, I'll end this here. But God bless you. Hopefully I've offered some thoughts for how we can move forward. I'm trying not to be sadistic or just negative about this. I'm trying to also offer paths forward. And the path forward is authenticity. Exactly how we're going to do that can be a little bit up for debate, but we have to really look at the pre-conciliar church and the post-conciliar church and glean what's good from it. But I think there was a lot more good in the pre-conciliar church, pre-Vatican II, than there is in the post-conciliar church. And I think that's just the reality that we're working with. And that's not an antiquarianism for the 1960s or 50s or 20s or whatever it is. that's looking at the entirety from 33 AD until 1969. Like, okay, all right. I've made my point. Let's try to go back. And in going back, we're going to go forward. Like, I want to phrase that differently. Let's try to go forward by going back a little bit. Let's try to close this gap, this rift that we've created since the 1960s. The church has created a rift, and we need to sew that rift together, is what we need to do. And we need to create conformity and continuity with the past. All right. God bless y'all.